Hello, welcome to another episode of Legends of FPV. My name's Andy Graber here with GetFPV, and tonight we're joined by none other than Paul Nurkkala. Many of you may know him in the FPV scene and now also a commercial pilot. He's a talented FPV pilot, racing, and many other talents. In 2018, he was the DRL World Champion. In 2017 and 18, he was the LA Drone Film Festival winner, as well as a Flying Robot Film Festival winner. In 2019, he was the New York City Drone Film Festival winner for FPV, and he is a professional cinema drone pilot today and doing a lot of work with an FPV, and he has a really interesting past too, I think. So I'm looking forward to talking to him tonight. So I'll be quiet and let's join Paul here. Hey, Paul.
How are we doing?
Good, man. How are
Really
you?
glad to be here.
How's the
I'm
beard?
super good. It's always a little bit kind of crazy, especially it's been so windy today. It's like it's just kind of like all over the place, and I haven't done any product or anything like that today. So
On a windy day, maybe it helps out though. It kind of breaks the wind a little bit for you, guards the neck.
it's great when you're making YouTube videos because it shows how windy it was, right? So it's like people it proves to people, oh, that's how crazy it was during the day while we were trying to film. So yeah.
Sure, that's a good point. You think you'd see more like people out for weather reporters with big beards so you could see their beard flying in the wind when they're hurricane reporting?
I think it would add to it a lot for sure.
Hey, welcome everybody to our live chat who's joining us tonight. Thanks for joining us as we talk to Paul. Oh, I can hear the wind right there. Yeah,
Yeah,
Paul
my
was lying,
bad.
guys. We're doing this live, so join us in the conversation. If you have any questions for Paul on the way, put them in the chat. We'll do our best to get to them as we get going. Hey, Paul, let's kick things off with a little history. I want to hear where you got your start in drones, FPV, RC in general. How far back does that go, and what was that for you like for you getting started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my in-laws were the ones that got me into drones in the first place. Back in Christmas of 2014, they bought me a toy drone for Christmas. It was a Hubsan X4, for those of you that know what that is. And I was flying it all over the living room, really trying to challenge myself, find like, can I land it on this thing? Can I fly it through that thing? Can I not get stuck in the Christmas tree? All that good stuff, and I broke it eventually, just completely smashed it into a billion pieces. And at the time I was working as a software engineer, and I'm like, hey, I'm kind of an engineer. Like, I should be able to figure out how to fix this. So went online. I got a YouTube university education in drone repair, and in the process discovered drone racing. I saw the Juz French Forest video, FPV crash session, and I just thought it was like the most Star Wars thing I had ever seen. And I realized in that moment, like, I have to do that. So from that moment, started going down the path of drone racing, learning how to build a drone, how to get it in the air. By March of 2015, I was flying my first home built drone, and then by June, I went to my first race, and I actually won my class at my first race.
Cool. And where was that at?
It was in Louisville, Kentucky. Someone reached out to me. His name was Gary. Reached out to me via Reddit and said, "Hey, we're doing a racing. I see you're in Indianapolis. If you want to come to a race this weekend, you should." So I drove down to Louisville. I met my business partner and one of my closest friends, Winston, there. He is currently working for the Nerk YouTube channel, helping doing editing and filming and all that good stuff. And yeah, it's all been downhill from there.
So when you got your tiny drone, the Hubson, had you had any other RC experience before that? Did you do like fixed wing or anything line of sight, that type of or cars?
Almost nothing. I had gotten like a gyro stabilized helicopter that wasn't even variable
Uh-huh.
pitch.
One of those
When
coaxial ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, just to play around with, and that was kind of what led to my in-laws getting me the drone. But like, there was maybe 10 minutes of total fly time before that. So it was so I was pretty much that was pretty much my first RC experience was flying drones.
And then you said you progressed up and started flying, what we were flying today, like 5 inches and other things like that. What was your first like 5-inch FPV drone?
Yeah, my first 5-inch FPV drone was a ZMR 250.
Mm-hmm.
Good old blackout clone from back in the day. And it was a kit that was built by a website called Mini Quad Bros. And they had this like prescribed kit. They sent you all the parts and then like an instruction video, and like you could kind of watch it and learn how to build it. And so like I actually, that was the first time I'd ever soldered or done anything like that. Assembled the drone, put the electronics all together, and then I actually plugged it in for the first time. It did not smoke, believe it or not, for the during my first build. And it did pretty well hovering too for the first time as well, because that was the clean flight days. It wasn't quite base flight. That was a little bit later to the scene, and he had a tune that came with it, and it flew pretty good. So I actually didn't get FPV gear when I started, to make a terrible pun, and so I learned actually to fly a line of sight fairly well before I ever stepped into the world of FPV, figuring that like FPV would always or potentially fail, right? So like,
did you have a camera on it, just flying line of sight, or it was just like a drone?
I have a couple shots from before I flew at FPV, if that makes sense. Like where I put like a Xiaomi Yi or something like that on the drone to get like HD footage. But it wasn't until like a couple months later that I actually tried FPV for the first time, and it was actually someone else's drone that I met up with in the Indianapolis area.
Wow, cool. I'm looking through the comments. We got a lot of people here commenting. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Let me see if I can get any questions out of the way right away. Class G is asking, what was your most harrowing job like, and where were you most scared?
For a job?
I guess it sounds like for a job.
Yeah, we can jump. The most scared I was for a job. Let's see. There's two things that come to mind. The first one was my first feature film. So I'd never really been on like a super big movie set before, and I was kind of going on my own. I wasn't going with like a production company or a drone company. Like I had gotten contacted. They said, "Hey, we want you to fly a Shendron's thick with a Blackmagic pocket cinema for our movie." And I didn't know what a big movie set was going to be like, so I had no idea what I was doing when I showed up the first day. And so, on a movie set, there's at least 100 people that are all there, and they're all being paid a lot of money to do their individual jobs, and they all have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment. And when they say, okay, it's time for the drone, they all have to go hide and wait. So whenever the drone's in the air, you gotta remember that there are like 100 people that are all being paid a very good chunk of money to just sit there and wait for you to be finished playing with your toy. And they're all, I'm not saying they're hoping for you to fail, but like, you're making them all wait on the jobs that they're trying to do because they have to go hide and be out of shot for the drone. So like the first time that the director called action on a feature film was pretty intense. That was a scary moment.
It sounds like it. Yeah, I mean, how would you compare that to like a big FPV race? Was it similar type of nerves or different kind of situation?
Racing's way easier, I'll tell you right now.
Okay.
Racing nerves, no big deal. But as soon as you have somebody looking over your shoulder and you're burning $100,000 a minute just waiting for you to fly, like there's no thrill like that for sure.
All right, interesting, cool. I want to go back a little bit again towards your earlier days. You said you had the ZMR, you started kind of line of sight and then progressed in. How did you transition from that to FPV? Was that always your goal, or you just started thinking I wanted a drone and then you kept going from there?
Yeah, my goal was definitely the FPV because I had seen that racing video and I'm like, that is what I have to do. And so, but I didn't buy FPV because I thought FPV was a little bit unreliable at the time. So we weren't sure, like, maybe at that time, especially, like, you might just lose video for no reason, like just like electronics failed or whatever. So I figured, like, I wanted to learn how to fly line of sight because if I needed to pilot and like control it, I would know how to fly it, and figure out which way it's going, all that stuff, line of sight without video. But like as soon as I got to go practice for my first race and then go to my first race, there was no question. Every flight is about FPV, so every drone had FPV on it for sure.
So what were your first goggles? Box goggle or a Dominator or something, or what?
Yeah, they were box goggles. They were the oh my gosh, I'm not gonna remember the name of them. The Hobby King made them, and they
Okay.
were like the foam goggles with like the diopter and then the screen at the back.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm trying to
They're
remember
like
the name of it too. Yeah.
they're like $50. They, honestly, like they were not bad. Like they were just those were just a screen. You still had to have a separate receiver, so everybody's like kind of rigging the receiver to the side of the goggles. Then it all
Yeah.
plugs in, and it's like it's just terrible. And you have to like it had like the red button, so you're changing channels and stuff. I went to like F3 Expo with those goggles. I went to a couple big events with those way back in the day. And then it took me a long time actually to even upgrade to Fat Sharks because I was like, oh, they're kind of expensive, and I don't know if I really want to be doing this. And so yeah, I eventually then switched to Fat Shark, and I think my first like nice goggles were Dominator V3s. I think I skipped straight to V3s before I finally got actual good goggles.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I remember when I had the Dominator V1s. That was a big deal at the time. Not
yeah.
many choices though anymore. Um, what felt like a big pinnacle moment for you in that kind of learning phase in the beginning? Do you remember any specific moment where you're like, you came home super pumped because you had achieved something, or you felt like you got over a barrier that was holding you back? Anything like that that's memorable for you related to FPV?
I think the thing that stood out the most was just the first time I got to fly FPV. It's like I said, it was my friend's drone. His name was John. Also lived in Indianapolis and had a full FPV setup. And he like he had seen me fly my drone on line of sight and was like, "Oh, you're fine with that. Like you should try this FPV and let me fly his drone." Back when we were all flying jump end 50-30s that would break if you touched anything. Like drones were fragile back then. Like you don't just like let somebody fly it. And he let me fly FPV for the first time, and I remember that flight. Like I could still see in my mind like what I was seeing and how much easier it was to control the drone from FPV. So what is as far as like breakthrough moments or moments that like resonate with me the most from like those early days was definitely that first flight because I could still see myself flying around the soccer field. I know exactly where it was,
Right.
all that good stuff. Yeah,
I've heard it commonly referred to the out of body experience, where you first
yeah,
kind of are a third person view of yourself while you're flying, and it's such a weird feeling
exactly.
to
Yeah,
see that. I remember that too.
yeah, it was
Hey,
incredible. And I landed. I
while
didn't
we're
even crash my first flight FPV. So
really,
yeah, it was an
wow.
intentional landing.
Yeah, that's tough to do. I wanted to thank everyone too for who's joined us here tonight. We do have a discount code that is live. Thanks to Paul for joining us. I'm going to put it up here on the screen. We have, you go to getfpv.com, you put some stuff in the cart, and on the coupon code, if you put in the code NERK, NURK, you're going to save some money right in your cart. It's an instant discount, and that'll be good until next week. So if you guys want to do any shopping, put that code in, save a little bit of cash. And thanks, Paul, for joining us
And
tonight
if
so we
you
could.
click one of my affiliate links on the way, I'll give you a crisp high five too.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys go over to Paul's page on YouTube, get a few affiliate links, and then make your way back over to the site. Nice. Paul, I also wanted to maybe kick things off with some of your famous videos on YouTube that
Yeah.
people may
Oh
have
boy.
seen. I wanted to hear a
There
little
we
bit
go.
of your perspective of what was happening in this video as the pilot and what was going through your head, and maybe some things that aren't apparent in the video that happened. Does that sound good?
Yeah, totally. I wonder which
Uh,
video it could be.
yeah, I wonder. Let's
Yeah,
see. See if you recognize it.
there's the one.
Oh no, it gave me an ad
We're
right when
getting
I go to play
ads.
it again.
So these ads are not from me. So here's the first insight into the video: is
Thank
that
you.
this video is not monetized by me. It is monetized by the record label for Gil Scott Heron, who wrote the song "The Train from Washington," and the so I actually people were like, oh, it was totally worth it that you got fined by the FAA because you must have made a buttload of money off of this video. I made $0 because it was monetized
Zero.
by Gil Scott Heron instead of me.
Was
So
that did you know that was going to happen, or in hindsight would you have changed the
yeah, because
music?
at the time I wasn't really like going for YouTube, if that makes sense. Like it was,
Yeah.
I liked posting videos. I wasn't trying to like make YouTube the thing. And this was kind of like the first thing that pushed me in that direction. And as a result, you know, I didn't ever think. I was like, oh, I'll just put a song on it that I won't monetize it, but it will still let me upload the video. And I think that in the end, like that was probably, you know, a nice bonus for the channel that, you know, a lot of people subscribed and saw this. I think I went from like 10,000 to 40,000 subscribers pretty much in a couple days. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I
it was
remember
pretty
when this
cool.
video came out. Yeah, I mean, it did kind of go. How did it go viral? Like right away, or was it a couple days, and all of a sudden something got picked up?
So I uploaded it at like 4 p.m. on the day that it came out, and it wasn't. It didn't go. It didn't pop off right away. Like it was like well viewed for my channel, and then somebody posted it to Reddit, and it made
Right.
it
I
to
think
the
that's where I
front.
remember I saw it showing up on Reddit. Yeah.
Yeah, it like and it was in the multi-rotor groups and stuff, but it made it to the front page of r/videos, which is a pretty huge
Right.
subreddit. Like if a video makes it to the top of that, they're getting a million views easy. And then it started getting reposted to like Engadget and um, Life Hacker and like those sort of like blogs and stuff like that, where it's like bigger blogs that are about technology and stuff like that. And that just
Right.
took it to the next level. And then like the next day it was all over Facebook, and then like a few days later it was all over Instagram. Like it was very crazy to kind of see how it graduated from thing to thing. But
So what was it
it's funny
like
because
flying at it, like this type of flight? Was it
yeah,
nerve
well,
wracking? Or are you having fun? Or
so well originally I took off to go fly the mountains, right? Like that's why the scene starts with me like flying up the mountain, and my buddy Andy tapped me on the shoulder and was like, yo, there's a train coming, like you should turn around and come check this out. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, let's go check it out. So you can see like at the beginning of the video, like I make a decision to go down and fly the train instead of flying the mountains. And from there it was just like we're just having fun because like there were like 3 or 4 guys watching in goggles, like 3 or 4 guys watching line of sight. You know, we're having a good time and not really thinking about anything other than like, oh, this is hilarious. So like this particular flight is super um, jerky, like herky jerky. Like it's really not smooth at all. Even for the
yeah.
time, was not smooth because we're laughing so hard. We're just like having a blast. Like these, like we had just finished. This was right after 2017 drone nationals with multi GP, and so, you know, so we're, you know, we just finished like 4 days of hardcore intense racing, and we're just blowing off steam at this point. And so like, you know, we're all of these things are happening, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy! Like I can't believe this is happening. And you know, we're laughing harder and harder. So you can see the drone just like all over the places. I'm like, just like, ha ha ha, ha, like we're just having a good time. Like even when I come in and land here at the end of the flight, you'll see like me kind of throw my hands up in the air, like, yeah, we made it back, and we're just laughing and having a good time. And like, you know, when we filmed this, none of us even thought for a second like, oh, this is dangerous or irresponsible, because like we have everybody watching, we're all having a good time, we're laughing. And you know, this just magic moment happened, and a lot of people got to come along on the adventure with us.
That's that's funny. So what about the fallout? Because then obviously there was all of a sudden this whole kind of fallout of the FAA got involved, and what happened there? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I guess it definitely got reported to the FAA that we were flying around a railroad track, which you shouldn't do. I agree that that was the case now, and I never thought about it at the time, especially because what's a drone going to do to a train? You know,
Right.
it's a few ounces versus a few 100,000 pounds. Um, and so like, you know, it never crossed our mind that it was ever really dangerous or anything like that. But you know, it got reported at the FAA. I actually self-reported it at one point because I, you know, was like, hey, like I didn't even think about this, and now that I've done this, it's, you know, whatever. And the FAA called, and about an hour and a half conversation just talking about the rules and what was going on, and how I was really not, you know, trying to be disrespectful to rules or anything like that, because I wasn't trying to be like, oh, I'm going out to really mess with these guys. You know, I was just like, oh, we're
Right.
having a good time, the boys on a weekend. And so they ended up eventually sending me a notice of civil penalty, which is not a ticket per se. It's like a, hey, you should probably pay this, otherwise we might sue you for this much money, basically.
Mm.
Um, and that amount was significant. Like, think, um, you know, a good chunk of a house. We had a few more phone calls with them. Just me. I didn't have any representation or anything like
I
that.
was gonna
As
say
well
you
as
had lawyers involved. I mean,
no,
at
no,
that point, you're probably going to be spending more money on lawyers anyway. So
exactly. Yeah, and so it was me and some trusted advisors. Kind of talking through, and we walked them from the price, like a good chunk of the price of a house to a used car that we ended up paying in the end to
wow.
for this video. So it was still not great. We learned our lesson. I don't mess with
Yeah.
trains anymore, and we move on.
You feel like you're kind of made a not what's the word
An example was being made of
example
me.
of
Yes, 100%.
yeah
Yes.
yeah yeah. Unfortunately, I guess somebody has to be that example every now and then.
Well, and as far as I know, it's me, Trappy, and the guy in Philadelphia, maybe, that are the only ones that have actually been fined by the FAA, as far as I know, for FPV. But we'll see.
I guess that's something, right? You're in an elite group.
The bad boys at FPV, we're out here just trying to have a good time, I guess.
So what's next in your devious plot to
right? Yeah.
foil the government?
Yeah. To operate by the instructions and not pay that much money again.
Right. Who did you have to make the check out to then? Like United States government?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember what I wrote on it. It's probably just like I probably just wrote whatever period and just sent it and let them figure it out from there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even at the time, I don't think you were the first person to ever fly near a train track or a train.
No,
Maybe I guess
definitely
it was
not.
the first one that went viral, and that's why it kind of got picked up.
Yeah. The virality, I think, was part of it because it was like, we got to make an example of this guy because so many eyeballs are on it. Like on Facebook, it had tens of millions of views between all of the like pages that it got reposted to and stuff like that. So it was insane.
Right. Is it still get active today in terms of people viewing it for your YouTube channel?
It's slower. It's probably like 1,000 views a month or so at this point.
Gotcha. All right, I got another video. See if you remember what this is about.
Yeah, Neil. Oh man,
this one I actually love. I'm a big fan of him and a lot of the stuff he does. So that was really cool.
Yeah. So the woman that's standing off to the right is she's now married to a friend of mine, Adrian Solgaard, who lives in New York City, and she works on Star Talk. And I was there visiting Adrian, and while we were there, he was just like, "Oh, by the way, like Neil does this sports talk podcast, like kind of adjacent to Star Talk." And we mentioned to him that you are a DRL competitor, and he was like, he would totally love to have you come down for an interview on his podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh, absolutely. So we're here in Hayden Planetarium. His office is just around the corner. And we said, hey, we can bring some of these drones in. Andy Shen is there because he lives a few blocks from Central Park, which is where Hayden Planetarium is.
Yeah.
And he invited us to come and fly in the office and show him what it was all about. So we had a extra pair of goggles, and we took him for a ride, and it was cool because like we came up like to what you're seeing here. You can see the elevator from the perspective of the drone. We came up that elevator. He's sitting where he is sitting now.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, it's great to meet you, Dr. Tyson. Really stoked to be here. He's like, no, it's Neil. What's going on? It was just like, it was really, really cool, really down to earth.
I assume
really
this was his
to.
first FPV experience.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you come in here and you essentially demo a flight for him around his office. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Flying through his office, like that telescope that's behind him. I don't remember who it belonged to, but it belonged to someone very important. And there's tons of paintings that are very expensive and very original in there and stuff like that. Yeah. So this is like, you don't crash in here. It would be a bad time because there's a lot of cool, important stuff in this office.
It's not a lot of space to move around necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an ideal place to fly a drone. But like out there is the exhibits of the planetarium, and he expressed interest in having me come back and do like a tiny whoop one take or a cine whoop one take narrow. I guess I got muted there for a second. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I just lost you for a second. I think you're back.
I think I accidentally tapped my trackpad, but he and I like planned out our little single take that we ended up doing here together with the drones. Like what's going on in the scene is he's like, oh well, we would obviously need to see this if we were going to do a tour of the office, and you should check out that telescope because it belonged to so and so, and here we are flying into his office, which is being prepped for the little podcast that we were doing, and in the end, he took this sack that was his black hole and kind of sucked in the drone and grabbed it and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. So yeah, it was a really good time. It was really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a neat experience to be able to do that. And I mean, something you wouldn't have probably guessed years before, that flying FPV would give you this opportunity.
No, absolutely not.
What's that equation for? Space-time continuum?
He explained it to us. It may or may not be in the video of his explanation, but there was a reason he chose it. It had something to do with like conservation of momentum or something like that, something drone related that he thought would be pretty cool. There's another equation that he had written out on the blackboard in the first room.
Okay, I didn't realize that. So they were purposely written for you for flying. You're saying?
No, he took 20 minutes to set those up, much to the producer's behest. Like he had Lindsay, who is the woman that I was mentioning in the beginning, do write the equations out, and then he went and like checked her work and made sure that it was right. And he like actually made a couple of corrections, which was pretty crazy. That he just knew off the top of his head what those equations should be. And like so, like this room is crazy too that we're flying in the video. But like that stuffed animal is a puppet that was made for him by Jim Henson for the Muppets of him.
Oh wow!
It's just this absurd memorabilia that's just sitting on a chair. And then like there's a shelf like in the room to the left that has his probably, I think he said like 37, I think, honorary doctorates, like each of his like robes for each of those, and just like stacked up on the shelf. And you're just like, you're sitting in this room that we're about to walk into, just thinking like the craziness that has happened in here. Like there's Andy Shen, doing practice tests for the black hole catch and stuff like that. You're just like, this is crazy. It's a different kind of human for sure.
That's really cool. How long ago was this that this happened?
This one is, I think this was right before COVID. Like it was like January 2019.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, because I'd come out to New York to do a few different things, work with Soul Guard, who kind of was the connection for this, and then while we were there, did this thing with Andy, and this was right when cine lifters were becoming a thing. So we were with Andy Shen testing out the first version of the Thick and stuff like that. So it was a pretty cool trip, and then the world shut down like right after it. It was February 2019.
Interesting.
Us practicing the little black hole catch.
That's awesome. Whip Squad has a question. He said, Nerk, if you could fly anywhere without FAA fines, where would it be?
Like I always end up having a new answer for this, depending on what time it is. Right now, I think if I could fly anywhere right now, it would be like Patagonia, and just have free reign anywhere in the national park to fly a long range in the mountains there. I think that would be a dream place to shoot. Yeah,
that would be very cool. Would now that we're hypothetical, would you push it? Like, I mean, that's one of the spots you lose a drone, you're probably not going to go recover it, depending on where you're flying. Do you tend to fly like with no regrets? You just push it, or you feel like you're a cautious pilot, like in something long range like that?
Usually, what I'll do is have a kind of sacrificial lamb So I'll have a drone that I don't mind losing too much. Maybe like it's a cheaper one, or I'll do a flight without a GoPro, right? Because the worst case
Okay.
scenario is you lose the GoPro, you don't have the ability to
Yeah.
get the Best Buy warranty, you lose some footage, that sort of stuff. So I don't mind that. So, it's not good, right? Because you're littering. It's the drone is out there, you're out that money, it sucks. But getting that GoPro back is all that matters. So I
So in
like to
that
kind of
case,
do it.
are you doing that flight first or last? Are you saying?
I'll do a flight without the GoPro first, make sure
Okay.
that I can get the range to where I want to go, and then slap the
Yep.
GoPro on and go. Or use
Okay.
a different drone that wouldn't necessarily carry a GoPro, like a Flywheel Explorer or something like that.
Right. Okay. So in your experience, have you had some lost drones? Have you lost any along the way?
Yep, I'm at 4. 4 is my count for lost drones forever. First one I ever lost was at the top of a waterfall in Iceland. The next one
That's
was
tough
at
to get
the
back.
yeah, we thought about it for a bit, but there was no way to do it safely. Yeah, that was a bummer and that was uh, the nicest GoPro that I had with us on that trip.
I was gonna
So
say,
it was like,
is your first feeling, oh crap, I lost my drone, or oh, what about my footage I have on there? Like, were you
the
more mad
footage,
about the footage or the drone?
100%
Yeah,
the footage. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I know it's not good, but when you make videos for YouTube, it's
No,
pretty
I know
easy
exactly what you mean. I mean, that's the
to
first
get
thought
footage.
I would have had too. Is like, especially if it's after a long flight and you're coming back and you're like, oh, you lose it right then. You're like, of
Yeah,
course, in your head that was the best flight ever in the world, and now you never had the video to show, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right,
Luckily,
that
I
was the
was with
first
good
one.
friends who got to see it,
Okay.
but I had DVR too, so it made it into the video that I ended up shooting from that. But the next one is at the bottom of the Ohio River, and that one was super stupid because I was like flying out to like a barge. I flew around the barge in the middle of the river, and I was flying back, and I just like bumped a stick that was poking out of the water. It was just like as the flight was winding down, so like it was just like I was basically coming into land, and it flopped into the water and then got pulled in the current so far that I couldn't find it. And this was the winter, and
Oh,
the river was flooded, so it was moving really fast. So like I stripped down to my underwear, and I'm like in the water, like trying to find it. Like, please just give me the GoPro back. And
and it was
I spent
freezing.
about 20 minutes. The air temperature was about 40 degrees, and the water temperature was not much warmer than that. And I'm catching hypothermia trying to find this stupid drone in the water, and we ended up having to give up on it. The next one
Man.
was Florida. It's in a tree in Florida outside of Fort Lauderdale somewhere. It's actually a GoPro session and a Racer 4 prototype. So
Oh
that's in a
wow.
tree somewhere in Florida. I have
Like
no
top
idea
of
where it
a
was.
oak tree or something. Oh, you don't even know.
It's
It's not
something
down.
huge. Yeah, I could
Yeah.
if I asked the right people, they would know exactly where it is because they knew exactly where it was, where that tree, and like they had tried to bring an arborist later, but we couldn't get it down. And then the fourth one just happened pretty recently. It's in Branson, Missouri, kind of in the Ozarks. Just had a dumb situation with a Inspire being powered on, caused me to lose video, and then it fell like basically down a cliff face that we couldn't get down. So yeah, it was a bummer.
Oh, that stinks.
So that's
That
all I've
stinks.
lost so far. But
I know that you've also you're into like some e-boards and stuff like that, like skateboards. Is that right? I
yeah,
saw. Am I remembering right? Didn't you have one adventure? You're like out a ways and your board died, or you got stuck like a long ways from home or something.
yeah, yeah. So I built I've been tinkering with electric skateboards for a bit. Originally, I had built a electric EDF powered board. So I got 4
Like
massive
just
EDFs.
big fans that just blow air and push the
Yeah,
board.
yeah,
Okay.
that like these EDFs do like I think it was like 15 kilograms each, like
Wow.
huge ones. A friend of mine had them for a project that he was working on. He said I could borrow them,
They
and
must be
so
like
I
deafening. Are they very loud?
it's very loud. Yeah, and so I built a skateboard that had 4 of those out the back, and I could kind of like use it as like push, and it was super inefficient. Like you get like 5 minutes of runtime on it, and
Right.
it would have gone pretty quick, but we didn't have enough run up or any place to test it because there's a the faster they go, the more power they can push out with EDS. So that was pretty cool. But that graduated into buying, it's like belt-driven motors with big pneumatic tires and all that stuff. And the first board that I put it on was not designed for mountain board at all. So unless you're just going straight in a line, you're going to end up breaking the board. And so I took it on a ride once, and with the battery powertrain combination I have, I get like 25 miles of range, which is pretty good for an electric skateboard. And I went out about 9 miles, and I was kind of riding through some woods in a park nearby, and I went off, like I kind of just like did a little step down of a bridge into gravel, and the board just cracked in half. So I'm 9 miles from home, and my friggin' board snaps in half, and I'm like, dang it. So, and this is like height of COVID. So like people are not, nobody's going to be like, oh, I'll give you a lift. Sure. So and my wife is at work. This is before I had my kid. So like, I'm like boned, I've got to walk back 9 miles. So I leave the park that I'm in. That was already a mile walk.
Plus you had your board, the battery and all that crap with you too, right?
And that battery is like 50 pounds by itself. Like it's not a good situation. So I actually got an Uber from this park, like 7 miles from home, with my broken board. Just like, and like no explanation.
Did the Uber driver say anything? Yeah, they're like, who am I picking up, a guy in the park?
Yeah, basically, like the spot that they picked me up is not like the park entrance. It's kind of like just like an exit of the park that is like, it's just like at the corner of a road next to a bridge. Like you're just like, hey,
if I was the Uber driver, I would have been like, pass.
Yeah, exactly. I recognize how sketchy it was, especially when it was like July of COVID. Like you're just like, oh boy.
That's funny. Well, you made it home in one piece. That's good. And you learned a lesson, or you have a different board now, or what are you doing?
So I continue to build, and then a buddy of mine, or local, Dane, hooked me up with a huge like mountain board that can actually take my weight and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's been good so far still.
Yeah, you're not the littlest guy on a board, so I imagine you have to have a pretty strong board, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
So you a lot of what I've seen, you've done like off-road stuff, right? Or do you have any like street boards too?
I just use the big wheels on street because it's just more comfortable. Like even with like big silicone tires, like it still is just like go. So I just like the pneumatic ones, even though they're less efficient.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It does make it smoother. Have you tried? Or do you do a one wheel as well, or like e-bikes or anything like that?
I've ridden one wheels, but they kind of sketch me out, especially because I know like literally like 8 people who have broken their collarbone on them, and it's all exactly the same way that it happens. So it's like, I don't want to mess with that. And then like when I'm riding my skateboard, like unless I'm fully geared up, I don't go over, as fast as I would be comfortable stepping off and running, if that makes sense. I just keep it nice and slow. But always wear a helmet. Right. And if I want to go fast, I've got knee pads, elbow pads, helmet, all that stuff.
Nice. What about e-bikes? Do any e-bike stuff?
Not mess with it other than like a little rent a bike in a city. I have a hub wheel for my bike, but I haven't had a chance to put it on.
Unicycles? How about powered unicycles?
I've tried to ride Brian Morris's.
It's tough.
It was harder than I thought. Like I can ride a one wheel all day, skateboard all day. As soon as you put me on the unicycles, it's like, what?
It doesn't feel natural. I've done it once, and I got to the point where I started feeling like, okay, I could probably keep practicing and figure it out, but that first learning curve was very steeper than the other ones for sure.
I can do the one where it like has the support between your knees, kind of. You know what I'm talking about? Like where like there's like kind of something that you can kind of hold on to with your like knees and thighs. But like the ones where just stand on it, absolutely not.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it should be working that way. Oh, well, thanks for sharing the story of getting stuck out 9 miles. That was interesting. Yeah. I didn't know the whole story behind it. I remember you made a post or something about it, and I was like, oh man, that didn't look like fun.
Looks like Jared Gallagher in the comments is not impressed with that, but hey man, we're just having fun.
Sorry, Jared.
Oh my
I got another video.
gosh.
I got another video I want to show you. Let's see what this one's like.
Yeah. Coasting Thunder.
Now, I think this is a video. Oh, every time I go full screen, then it puts on an ad. Sorry, let me skip it.
No, you're good. Thanks for the ad revenue. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're
I'll check my account for my 18th of a cent.
I think a roller coaster park like this seems to be such a good match for FPV drone flying, and one of those things where I've thought about it even long ago. It's like, man, that would be fun to fly a drone around like a roller coaster park or a park in general, just because of all the obstacles. And I think the roller coaster part of it, chasing something down a track that's like going, up, down, left, right, not just straight. It sounds like it would be fun. Was it fun? Was it like nerve-wracking? What was it like?
Oh, it was a dream come true. It was also nerve-wracking because it was really hard, harder than I expected.
Okay.
I think I had seen. I wanted to say that it was Red FPV. I think he's European, of some flavor. That
I remember seeing that one. Yeah,
he had chased a roller coaster. I think he had like flares or smoke grenades or something like that on it. That was a long time ago, like two or 3 years ago, and I was like, "That is the coolest thing. That looks like a blast. I want to do that." And so fast forward until earlier this year, it was the first time I ever got to chase after a roller coaster, and the staff was like, "Hey, you guys get here at 7 a.m. You can have until the park opens at 10. We'll run the ride for you as many times as you want." So we did a good chunk of runs without people in it, and then we staged our own people just in the front of the carts after we kind
I
of
was going
set
to
up
ask
the whole.
who were the people? That was part of your crew, or who was that?
Yeah. So I was I was working on behalf of Lifted Media, which is a drone company in Houston, and we were working for the client was called Coasting Thunder, and they go and travel a lot of the amusement parks and stuff in the U.S. and kind of tell their story and do marketing and stuff for them.
That looks like a
And
crazy drop. That first drop.
it feels really uncomfortable, especially on a wood coaster, because wood coasters are very grainy.
Right,
So it's like,
you feel them.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. But so we ended up scouting it, and because it was kind of built into the woods and like up and down hills, there wasn't really any good spot to get the whole coaster. Like we just couldn't get signal from one spot to the other because like it was super spread out through the woods. So we ended up coming up with this plan to do basically a matte cut where they use kind of the elements of the coaster to kind of wipe the screen and allows it to transition from one part to the other. And so most of this video is kind of justifying why did we have to do that and why we decided to do that and the safety factors for why we did that. And then kind of taking you through the process of like, getting this practice in, trying all these really hard elements like this corkscrew, which, it's a 6 foot gap, but like it changes. It's like an S turn. And it was much harder
I gotta
to fly
imagine
through.
it's disorienting watching a coaster twist in front of you while you're trying to hold a straight line, right?
Exactly. And not even holding it. It would be great if I could have held a straight line, but like I actually had to kind of follow the coaster a little bit.
Oh, okay. It
But
wasn't a straight line. Okay, I see that.
it
Yeah.
gives you the sense that gravity is changing. Like you think that you're getting kind of pulled to the side of the room rather than like having to follow. It was very strange.
So did you have any crashes then in the practice rounds and stuff?
I did crash once, but it was a recoverable crash. So like and I'll show it here in the video in a second. But basically, I kind of bump one side, and then I kind of like pinball through the coaster, and then I end up flying away. So the only crash I had, I actually caught. I saved it.
Okay, nice. Did you actually ride the coaster yourself then as well?
After, yeah, later in the day, once the park was open, I got to ride it once.
Did you ever feel like you wanted to fly your drone while riding the coaster?
Not a chance. I like I can kind of do that from a car sometimes, but I get sick to my stomach right away.
Has anyone done that? I'm curious because I would definitely get sick too from a coaster.
It would be so like because coasters are so violent. Like until I don't know what the last time you were on a coaster for, but like it is rough.
Yeah, Florida we have Busch Gardens and a few other ones that are pretty. Have some good. I mean, the wooden ones, I agree though. Like, and that's got to be more of a challenge even to fly because you have this entire structure holding it up compared to like the metal ones where they're just big poles kind of floating in space.
Yeah, and we've got some metal ones coming up. I've done it since we did this, a separate trip with Coasting Thunder, where we have some like this is cool. We have some stuff that's way cooler. So I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and this gap was really hard to take too.
So how long from like start to finish was this day filming to get this video?
So that particular day ended up being like 6 a.m. call time to, I think we wrapped for the day closer to 9 p.m. So, 15 or 16-hour day.
Wow.
Most of what we're seeing here was filmed within like between like 7 and noon, maybe closer to 1 o'clock. But it was definitely a long day, and we had a really long day the day before.
So wait,
here's that
you
crash.
shot? That's the crash.
Ding, ding, ding,
Ping pong. Yeah.
It'll replay it in a second, but yeah, and actually that crash we didn't talk about it in the video because it didn't fit the story, but it broke actually the bottom plate of the drone, which is a Project 399 Super G that had it was already kind of starting to go, and that crash finally broke it. So like it was like kind of floppy. So we actually switched drones for the final take, just to an identical drone, so that we could kind of get it. And then
I joke with pilots here sometimes, like we'll hit trees, and we joke never disarm because you like always can make it out. Like that's the goal.
Oh,
at
yeah.
least. It doesn't always work. But was that what was going through your head there? Like because a lot of times you would just be like, "Oh, disarm, I crashed," right?
But
you're like
I
fighting it.
I don't want to walk for it. I want to bring it back. Because even if I crash, I can still kind of save face with the client a little bit and be like, "Yeah, I didn't crash. We pushed a little too hard. It's fine."
Does that strategy always work, or have you had some cases where
never.
I should have disarmed?
Yeah, disarm if you lose video. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. At that point, you're not gonna make it any better, most likely.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, even the trees and stuff around here looked like it were challenging, like just beyond the coaster.
Just you wait for the next trip. It gets even crazier.
The next one you're talking about is the same location or a different park?
Different park, but trickier coasters.
Okay, wow.
X-Jet, really cool. What's going on? That's good to see you here.
Hey, Bruce. Nice to see you, man.
Adrian says, when you do a gig like this, how many drones did you bring? I probably had 7 with me on this trip. Probably be 4 or 5-inch drones and 3 squirts. Actually, I had 8 because I had my Sicario as well. So I had 8 drones.
So like on a shoot like this, I mean, you obviously have some planning ahead of time. This was all planned to be filmed with a GoPro. Was that the camera of choice with this one?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This particular client wanted GoPro footage specifically. They want that real steady look, rather than the super, kind of jagged cine lifter look with like the 24 FPS with the motion blur. So they were looking for the feels from a GoPro plus real steady.
Okay. So maybe now that let's transition into some of your commercial work, which this would be included in that. Yeah. How does that work for you? Because I mean, you didn't obviously start doing that right off the bat. I think a lot of your history, like you said, you got into racing. You were on DRL for a while. And when did you start realizing you could do some of this work commercially and get paid for it?
Yeah, so my goal for that was a really funny ad that popped up. That's good. My goal for I was like, I don't remember that being in the video, but I wasn't surprised. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like what?
That was in the middle of the video here. I'll go back.
No, that's good. What was I saying? I'm so distracted. I saw
that was We were saying, when did you realize you could get paid for doing drone stuff?
Well, so I kind of started to do drone stuff full time in January of 2017. That was just a good point in terms of where my career as a programmer had been, and it swithed into becoming an opportunity to also do drone stuff because YouTube was starting to kind of take off a little bit. And then drone racing as well. That was when I had gotten invited into the Drone Racing League, was back in 2017. So since then, my business has been kind of threefold. I've got the YouTube content creation side, partnerships, affiliate programs, all that good stuff, partnerships with GetFPV, for example. the drone racing side. So the Drone Racing League provides a contract to pilots that are involved in the season, and they pay them to be competitors. And then the filming side. So that was kind of like my third avenue for money making. And originally, it had definitely been focused more on the YouTube and the drone racing side. And as I've continued to get more and more into drones, I've realized that the filmmaking side is more interesting to me. It's more exciting, and so I've kind of started to switch things more and more over that direction. My first few clients were full production clients, like where I was doing everything from like shooting with a handheld camera, getting those kinds of shots, like interview shots with my partner Winston, and then it ended up eventually turning into more of an FPV focused contribution because I'm much more valuable behind the sticks of a drone than I am with a camera. So it's like, let's try to figure out how we can create an opportunity out of all of this situation. So since then, I've been really going down the rabbit hole of how do I use drones for filmmaking.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. What was that initial transition like from? I mean, you were married at the time when that was happening.
Yep.
Was
Yeah,
your
I've
wife
been married
supportive
since
of that or family? I know sometimes even when I transitioned from my job, we actually had some parallels. I was a computer science major. I did web design for many years until I got into drones as a hobby. I ended up running into Tim Nilsson in a cow pasture on a FPV event and found out he had moved to Sarasota. I got invited by him to join him. And it was just he and I starting off in the beginning. And it was kind of crazy at the time. Like drones nobody knew what they were really. FPV certainly was like, nobody knew what it was. And then, my family heard I was going to quit my job and go work with some guy out of his house selling drone parts. It sounded kind of crazy. For me, at my point in my career, I was like, well, at worst case, I'm going to go do something I'm really interested in right now. And I thought it would be fun. And if it didn't work out, I'd move on to something else. What was it like for you on that transition? Did you feel like I'm going to be successful at this? I know it. Or was it more of felt risky to you? What did it feel like?
So when I kind of made the transition over towards drones, I had been contacted by the Drone Racing League, so it wasn't a done deal at that point, but it was definitely starting to lean that way in terms of like an opportunity to compete and to make some money doing drone racing. And so like at the time, my wife was working full time as a nurse, so she does all right for herself, and we talked it over and we said like hey, there's very few chances in anyone's lifetime that they get to make an attack at doing what they love for a living, and that being their full-time thing and the thing that they could take a crack at. And so, we talked and we said, I think it would be irresponsible not to make the attempt, right? Because, it's so few times does it happen to be the case that people can go for that when we're staring at literally a dotted line where we can say, let's go after it. It would be stupid not to. So, we talked and decided that we would try it. So my wife was always super supportive. I think my in-laws who bought me that drone for Christmas were kind of wondering, what have we done to our son-in-law who's now quitting his, pretty well-paying programming job to play with toy drones, but look at me now.
I've heard a similar story from my in-laws. Yeah, you've made it to the top now. You're here, legends of
Let's
FPV.
Go.
This is the pinnacle. This is the top.
That's it. It's all downhill from here. I'm retiring tomorrow. You heard it here first. These drones don't need them anymore. Top. It's gone.
Going out on top. Square One says, Nerk, there's a slow fireman in your seat at DRL. What's up with that?
Oh boy. Well,
how long were you on DRL? Was it one season or two?
No, I did 2015, which was season 1, as a coach. Okay. So it's kind of like a behind the scenes. I made it to the show like a couple times, but it wasn't like anything. I became a pilot for the 2016 season. Is that right? Sorry, 2016 was the first year. 2017 season was my rookie year. 2018 was the year that I won. And I also competed in 2019 and then in the sim season of 2020, which wasn't really a season, but is what it is. So what Square One is saying is that Mr. Manny himself is competing in the drone racing league this season, even though I said that I was probably going to be the backup pilot. But yeah, I'm not totally sure why I didn't get to compete. But I'm so stoked that Manny was able to snag second place in his first ever race, and he's going to be super killer when it comes to the sim races that are coming in the rest of the season. So I'm really stoked to be a part of the DRL team from the production side. So I have done a lot of like help with the replays and doing stuff in the truck, and doing a couple on-screen things as well. So it's been a blast to be a part of it from both sides, and I definitely hope to come back in 2020 and race full time. But you know, gotta figure out how to beat all these little kids. I mean,
yeah. So you have is a son or a daughter?
son James, Mr.
Yes,
James T. Nerk, Captain James T.
James
Nerk.
T. Nerk. Wow, he's destined for great things already.
You're right, he is. So yeah, he's 9 months as of a couple days ago.
Awesome.
Happy little kid. Yeah, he's been pretty easy, honestly. So I'm really grateful, especially for my in-laws, who I believe are at home right now babysitting him while my wife is at work. So
nice. Always nice to have that grandma and grandpa helping out.
Yeah. Hey, well, and I should probably address that at some point in the story. I'm coming live to you from a hotel room instead of my usual studio because we were on the road, and Andy and I have been trying to set up this Legends of FPV stream for a couple months now, and I kept
tell you what,
talking.
Paul's a busy guy. He's tough to get a hold of, you know.
I figured it would be better to just let's just commit to it. We're going to make it happen. Tonight ended up being perfect for it. So we're here checking in from the Margaritaville Resort in Houston. So
sounds romantic.
Yeah, me and Winston are here sharing a room romantically. Yeah.
So that kind of comes with the territory of this kind of work that you're in now. It seems like a lot of travel is involved with that. You know, you're not going to get jobs close to home very often, probably.
No.
How is that for you? I mean, does that wear on you? I can imagine can be tough if you're on the road so much, and sometimes probably at weird hours that you have to be somewhere. Is that what's that like?
I love it right now. I know that I probably always won't, but like, I love being at the airport. I love flying. I love traveling. You know, and then the new challenge of how do I execute this drone flight in a new environment for a new project for a new client, and represent myself well, and represent drone enthusiasts and drone professionals well, and you know, and make the best art that I can given whatever requirements are around me. Is such a fun problem to solve. And so, you know, I typically do about 20 days a month on the road, 10 days at home on average or so. And so yeah, it is a lot of travel. It's a lot of different hotel rooms and trying to figure things out. And it's really hard to diet well on the road. So like I fluctuate weight like crazy, which is annoying. Like when I'm at home, I can, you know, I'm super easy, but then as soon as I'm on the road, it's like, well, you know, I can get the salad or I can get like ribs. Like I'm not getting the salad, you know? So it's, you know, like there's all sorts of challenges. There's things like that make it hard. It makes it really hard to like be more organized. Like I feel like some of the tension that maybe is between my wife and I is like that I just don't always have like a schedule laid out very well. Because like I don't know what's going to be happening in 2 weeks. You know, I might be at home or I might be in Los Angeles, you know, and I love that. But I don't love that I can't always be more prepared for it, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. You can't prepare always for the unknown. That makes it challenging, but that's also probably what makes it exciting too, that it's not mundane and it's not the same thing over and over.
I mean, just yesterday we were out in the middle of an island in the middle of Lake Conroe in Houston and chasing after 3,000 horsepower boats with expensive $20,000 drones. And just like, you know, I could be sitting at a desk right now, or I'm out here on this crazy adventure doing stuff that I never thought I would have gotten to do. And so for me, like it's an easy yes to take the consequences of travel and being on the road for the cool opportunities that it creates.
David's asking,
and if you don't mind, and the moment that I take that for granted is the moment that I need to give up, right? Because there's only so many people that get to do, what,
Right.
me and Vanover and Jet and Gab 707 are doing at this time. And the moment that I take that for granted, I need to give up, right? Because then someone else needs the chance to experience this and to be a part of something so cool and something so unique. So I try to reflect on that as much as I can. That what we get to do is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, I agree. David was asking, have you ever tried DCL, and how would you compare it? Is it same, different?
In terms of the simulator or the leagues? I
Yeah,
think
say
he's talking about the
simulator.
leagues because we're talking about the leagues. No, I've never gotten a call to do DCL. I'd entertain it if they shot me a call. I probably won't necessarily reach out unless they want me to reach out. So we'll just leave it at that.
How would you compare
My options are
DRL?
always open.
How would you compare a DRL race to like a multi-GP style race?
They're completely different things for different reasons, and not saying one is better than the other, but there's different factors that are at play. I think, like when you're at DRL, like you're going to be doing a heat racing, and then someone's going to come up to you with a camera and be like, "Hey, why'd you suck that race?" Basically, like I mean, they use nicer questions, but like hey, like we need to talk about like why you just did terribly, and that's a very different kind of pressure to being kind of on your own and having to deal with okay, now how do I reset after a crash and come out and win this next heat against Heads Up? It's like there's two very different things that are happening, and they're both very
Give me an
challenging in
idea.
their own
Maybe
right.
I'll go to the champs and I'll run around the camera asking people, why did you crash? Why did you suck so bad that race?
You should, and you're going to get a lot of people that get really angry at you. But when you're at DCL, or when you're at DRL, it's your job to answer that question. Right. Your job is not necessarily to compete, though that good competition is good, but your job is to answer the questions and to be a character and to tell that story. And if you're not doing that, they don't, even if you're winning, they don't want to hear from you, right? Because like if you're not making a story, you're not having fun with it, what's the point in being there? So I think that's one of the things that I got to do well on DRL was just to let's mess with Vanover a little bit, make a good little segment out of this, and let's when we win this heat, let's get way over the top and just like at one point I pretty much pushed Flexi off of the stage. Like it was a good time. We had a lot of fun.
Were you one of the older pilots there that you were competing against?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, probably. I think I'm 30. I think Gab is a little bit older. Jet and I are about the same age. And then I think as of 2019, I think that we were the three oldest ones. So yeah. We used to have like Provo, who was a little bit older with kids and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely erring on the side of younger for sure.
Does that feel for you as an advantage or a disadvantage one way or the other versus someone coming in at like 18 or 19?
But it's all the 18 and 19-year-olds winning everything. It definitely feels like a disadvantage. and I don't know, and I'm not saying that it's age that necessarily does it. Actually, I don't think it's age. I think there's some advantages that are given to you by neuroplasticity. So like younger guys in general have this ability to adapt a little bit faster, and then rather than having to train further, their brains just are accepting the new normal, and so they can kind of get it a little bit quicker, if that makes sense. So
Isn't that age? Or are you saying it's not age?
I'm saying being younger gives your brain more neuroplasticity, like in the same way that like younger people can learn languages more easily than older people in general. And I think that there's some sort of opportunity that happens there. But you look across any sport, that's the case as well, right?
Yeah.
Except for with some exceptions. I mean, like Lewis Hamilton in Formula One is the 7-time world champion, but he's getting chased around the track by a 20-year-old. It's like, so it's you got to figure out like what kind of different things are happening there that help drive one thing or the other.
Yeah. Formula FPV for any kind of racing type events?
Yeah, actually, very recently, I got to go to a racetrack in Chicago and film for like live during a couple big races of like IMSA level cars.
That's cool. So, like,
Yeah, it
what
was a
kind
lot
of
of fun.
filming did they want you to do?
They gave me a sector of the track and said turns 7, 8, 9, 10. You can film anywhere in here. You can be over the track, just don't go head on. Everything else is up to you. And so I just got, from 5 or noon to like 6 p.m. We're just pack after pack after pack, getting as many shots of the cars as we can.
Nice. So you're from Indianapolis. Are you go to the raceway there for the
Yep.
Indy race?
Yep. I've been to the 500 a couple times. I've helped do some counter drone stuff for the 500.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes
Which is all.
sense.
That's all I can say about that. And then I've also gotten to do some filming a couple times at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is really cool. It's really fun
That's
to be there
cool.
because it's like there's like, oh, you want to come park your car like so we can get set up, and they're like, oh yeah, here you're gonna drive part of the road course to go to the parking lot. And you're like, oh, I'm on the track. It's really hard to not go 90 miles an hour when you're.
Yeah, which on the track would probably look very slow. 90 miles
Oh,
an hour
it
isn't that
is.
fast.
It really is.
I can
Yeah, it's
imagine.
good
I've
fun.
flown into Indy a few times. You fly right over that track, usually going into the airport, and it's always like,
Yep.
oh, I want to go fly there. That would be cool.
It's really cool. It's worth it.
Nice. You've also done a few videos where you've collabed with some other YouTube people. I think Mark
Yeah.
Rober, is that right? And you've got to
Mark
fly
Rober.
in some stadiums and other things like that. What was that like?
Yeah, I love collaborating with other YouTubers, especially to see their process, right? Because I like making videos. I like kind of coming up with creative ideas for things to film, like turning a toilet seat into a drone, for example. Like stuff like that is just a blast. And so going out with other creative people and seeing like their process, how they're making a video, what they're focusing in on, what their crew looks like, all that stuff is really crazy. So I've gotten to go out with Mark Rober for 2 different videos now. One was for his football kicking world record video, which was a smaller crew, and then I got to do the second elephant toothpaste world record video, which
I
was
saw
like
that one. You almost died.
I almost died. Yeah, and but like the crew there, like 2 of the camera guys, they used to work on MythBusters. It's just like this completely like, this is for a YouTube video. Like, holy cow! Like, this is just to see the different levels of approach that people have for making content is awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the MythBusters day, that reminds me. We used to work with one of the camera guys that was one of the first guys using drones on their set for MythBusters.
Awesome.
And that was really cool to get to just kind of hear some of the behind the scenes of what they were working with from a production standpoint and using drones. That was the early days, like I'm talking like 2014, 2015
Sure, yeah.
type stuff. But that was cool.
It's amazing. I'm sure there's
video.
a lot of cool behind the scenes stories there at GetFPV and stuff like that.
There are a lot of them even on the wall behind me. So many of these are projects that are like were prototypes or one-offs for whatever they were, and most of them have a story behind me. Someday I'll have to do a video. Maybe I'll have Tim Nelson on and we can talk about
I would watch the crap out of that video.
Good to hear. Yeah, I think that would be fun too. All right, here's one that I thought was interesting that you talked about.
The old Nerk stabilizer.
Yeah, you're putting a gimbal on a drone, which for those who have been around for a while, it's like we're going back to gimbals again, which sounds kind of funny. But take me through what your thought was on this. Why were you testing it out?
Yeah, so I think the idea originated from the fact that RealSteady has the horizon stabilize mode, which is a cool look, right? Like it kind of looks like a Mavic. It just keeps the horizon stable, and you're kind of like whooshing around, and it's not as distracting from the environment because the camera's not rolling around. But in order for it to do that, it crops the picture, right? So like RealSteady has to like zoom in on the video to get rid of the fact that you're twisting the drone around. And so the theory was, if we took RealSteady's horizon stabilizer and then kept the camera as level as possible, it's not going to have to crop as much, and as a result, you're going to get a more consistent picture and resolution through the whole shot. Like, so like in this shot of the field, you can see it zoom in really far as I'm tilting the drone,
Right.
and then it zooms back out. It kind of has this breathing effect that is not aesthetically pleasing.
And
So
that's because
using the gimbal
it has to crop it so much to keep it level, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so the theory was if we put some sort of gimbal on there, even if it was a terrible gimbal, which was where it started, was like literally like a 9-gram servo with a GoPro taped to it. You know, maybe it would work a little bit better, even because Real Steady can take out those jitters from those crappy gimbals. And then in that process, so a couple guys reached out to me. I think I'll probably get this wrong, but I think he was at JP Mustache. He's like he photographs world championship beard and mustache growers.
Wow. Are you in the running?
No, definitely not. I can't make a literal bird cage out of my beard. Like that's like the kind of guys who win. But he saw the video that I made with the cheap servo and was like, "Hey, you got to check out this Quark gimbal and see if it would work for your purposes." And then sent me some footage of like him just using it with Hypersmooth, and it looked amazing. And I'm like, "Well, I got to try that with Real Estate." So that was the kind of the genesis for this video. Was let's take this gimbal and see how it performs on a racing drone with Real Steady compared to everything else.
So what was the result? What'd you find out?
The result was if you want stabilized horizon and you don't want the camera to be breathing, it does a really good job. So you know, if I'm ever asked to do FPV shots with a stabilized horizon and they don't want to pay for like a Komodo and a gimbal, then this is the option because it's the best way to stabilize the horizon and get the GoPro look.
Yeah. N3 Frame is asking, do you actually use the gimbal drone? So you have used it on certain cases?
I've used it commercially a couple times. Most people don't want. If people are calling me to do FPV, they don't care if the horizon is level. They want to see that bank.
Right.
They want to see.
I find that interesting because you know we started FPV, everything was fixed and shaky and terrible. Then we kind of we were all chasing gimbaled footage. Then DJI kind of took over that market for the consumer market.
Yep.
And now we're back to FPV being desired to have a fixed shot. We're not necessarily having shaky footage, but they want that feel of diving and flying and moving and turning, which I find interesting. We're kind of back to like, oh, they don't want the gimbal, but I can see where both have their own, you know, use.
I like that. I like that people are trying different things with FPV, right? Because like some people want it's like, oh, I want this to be the point of view of a bird. Like, well, great. Like we can do that because we can kind of bank back and forth and do, you know, dive in over.
We made it. We made it to your studio. Here's Paul in the studio.
Right? Yeah. See, this is what it normally looks like when I'm at home this way. Why can't I?
So what is your studio? Is this a room or a garage or where?
It's my garage. Yeah, my garage. When my son was born, he took over my studio, the room that was my studio. And so I said, well, then I get the garage. And so I took over the whole garage and we totally redid it. Epoxied the floor, put in a giant heater air conditioner unit,
cool.
New lighting in the roof, painted all the walls. Like it's pretty dope. I really like that space now.
Did you have to move your cars out or were you just using it as storage before?
We didn't really park the cars too much in, and when we first did it, we set it up so that I could put one of my cars in one side of the garage. And over time, as I figured it would, we don't really park the car in the garage anymore.
Right.
But it has remote start, so like in the wintertime, we can just fire it up and it melts all the snow off just fine. It's electric, so it's not like I'm just like idling in the driveway.
All right, you have a Tesla, is that right?
Yep, yeah, it's a Tesla Model Y.
Pretty cool. You enjoy that car?
It's the best purchase I've ever made. Since November, I've put 22,000 miles on it. Like we drive it everywhere. It's amazing. I love it.
Wow, nice. My buddy has one from college. He gave me a ride there a couple months ago. It made me a little bit jealous.
It's really worth it. There's a little bit of an investment, but over my math, it was about 10 years or 100,000 miles. It pretty quickly is more valuable than a ICE car, the internal combustion engine.
You just mean because of the cost savings for you related to gas?
Gas maintenance, no oil
Yeah.
changes, no fluid of any kind, no transmission fluid, all that stuff. And then, especially as gas price right now, it's very nice to just like, because I'll fill up for $9, where like I fill up my ice car for 50. It's just like,
I can imagine. I know that feeling. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining us again on the live stream tonight. I wanted to remind you, we do have a code live on the website right now on getfpv.com. You can use it. Thanks for Paul joining us. If you use the code NERK, N-U-R-K, at checkout, you'll save some money. Add it to your cart. Use the coupon code there, NERK, and you'll save a little bit of money. Thanks again, Paul, for joining
I'm looking
us.
at your shopping cart here, trying to figure out.
I got a Lux HP.
It's just you're like building a cine lifter with one motor, and then the motor is not for the bind and fly.
The 3-inch, yeah. No, I'm a very confused customer. This is one where I'm going to order
it. I want to do cinematic FPV, but I'm not sure if I want to do cine lifting or cine whoops.
Believe it or not, we do have customers. They'll do something like this, and then they'll email us and be like, did I order the right thing? And you're like, you're way off.
Yeah, yep. The less brake pad changes. Yeah, that's also a great point. You don't have to hit the brakes in the Tesla or often.
Oh, that's true, because it uses the motor kind of to slow itself down, right?
Yep.
True. Which I heard takes a little get used to, though, because you like let off the accelerator and then it slows down. But at first, it's a little weird, right?
Yeah. It's always fun to put somebody, like, I like to let people drive it just to kind of see what their reaction to it is, and it's always funny to be like, because like you'll just like they'll let off and just like, and you're like, wait, that's right, I forgot to mention that. But like I only drive it with the right pedal, so like I hardly use the brake ever, which is great.
Yeah. And do you use the autopilot features?
Absolutely, yeah.
You trust it. I guess you got to at some point.
I trust too much, for sure.
Paul, what are you flying now? I think you said you had a few drones with you. You want to show a little bit what those are?
Yeah, well, so I had more earlier because we're here shooting some stuff on behalf of Catalyst Machine Works for their upcoming Money Shot Mini V2. But I forgot that by the time we were doing this that I wouldn't have one here with me because it went back to the shop for now. It's not broken, don't worry. So all I've got with me are my 5-inch and my Cinewood. So my 5-inch drone right now, I think I actually got all of the stuff off of GetFPV except for the motors, which are the heads up 533 motors, which I think you guys have actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And then full size air unit, original air unit. And then I have this is the T-motor stack right now. I usually use the Hobbywing stack, but it wasn't in stock when I ordered. So this is the T-motor HD stack and then that has a direct plug for the air unit. And then I use HQ 5.43 props, 5 by 4.3 by 3 props, so like a little bit lower angle of attack.
D1S, or which ones are they?
They're since then. They've come out since then, okay. So they're 5 by 4.3 by 3.
Okay.
And then because these motors, the heads-up motors are like 1950 kV, so they're much higher kV for 6S. Like that lower angle of attack prop. Then I run a Hero 9 or Hero 10, and then the battery is some sort of 1300 milliamp 6-cell, whatever I can get in stock.
Okay.
So that's my 5-inch setup. Oh, this is a Super G, Project 39 Super G from Jet. And I've run this frame since 2017 when it came out.
Yeah, it's been out for a while. I think I have one at home too.
Literally, like I've just never seen a need to change, especially when this is so simple. All the parts are interchangeable. All of the screw links are the same. Almost all the standoffs are the same. So it's just simple. And then the other drone that I fly most often for GoPro stuff is the Squirt, Shendrone Squirt V2.1. And in it, I have right now, because stock was really low on 20 by 20 stuff when I had to re-up my fleet, I have the iFlight Success stuff, but I don't really like it very much, if I'm going to be honest. So I'm trying to get away from that as soon as I can. I have T motor, T mount, 1507, 2700 kV motors on there. Definitely got those
Let me
on
know what you need.
GetFPV.
I'll hook you up with some 20x20 gear.
There you go. Cool. And then I have the Caddx Fist Pro in here from back in the day. And that's, again, just I have them from when they were actually in stock, which I think everything is starting to come back in stock now.
It's finally trickling back in. Yeah, we have the original air units back with the original DJI camera. We just finally got those back. We have Vistas coming, I think, this week or next week. It got stuck in customs, so the shipment's been stuck for 10 days. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all kind of in small batches finally coming back. After, like, that stuff's been out for like 8 or 9 months or something.
It's been a while, yeah.
And then everyone's been trying to make alternatives, which no one's super excited about. So
yeah, there's one that's okay, and the rest are like absolute garbage. I say that as a sponsor, Run Gimbal. But what I love about these two is they run the same GoPro, right? I don't do any like naked GoPro or anything like that, so that I can literally just take the same GoPro, move it from one drone to the other for whatever situation I'm in, and then I can take it to Best Buy and get a new one when I need it. So I typically run setups that are full-size GoPros for filming.
Nice. I saw someone asking, are you going to Champs this year? Are you going to be traveling? Are you going to be around Champs?
I probably can't make it to Champs. I hadn't had a chance to get to a qualifier this year, and then it's hard for me to choose to do something for fun over something where I can get a paycheck, just because I gotta support the family and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, it's you gotta double down on your loss if you ever take time to do something that's not work. So it's hard. I'm kind of in a mode right now where I'm just like, I'm gonna get as much done as I can, and Champs did not fit the bill this time.
Okay, well,
which is the same reason I missed IO.
You guys have a chance now. Paul's not gonna be there now. You can go win. So
yeah, I mean,
but Paul, I have a question. Who's going to be the guy walking around barefoot then if you're not going to be there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Who else does do that a lot, though? I feel like I tried to start a trend, right? Shoes are the worst.
I think Jesse Perkins does, although I don't know if he's at Champs or not. He tends to be barefoot. I just have I have a vision of you. Every time I think I've seen you at a race, you're walking around barefoot.
I definitely try to have my shoes off as much as possible. And drone racing is no exception, especially. I wish they would let me have my shoes off at DRL, but I got yelled
at. Nobody wanted to see your feet.
That's not uniform. And you're right. Nobody wants to see that, but it's not about them. It's about me competing, right?
Don't say nobody. There may be a few people that wanted to see your feet, probably.
Well, they can go subscribe to my OnlyFans.
Support him on his Patreon for his barefoot feet. Yeah. Speaking of, where can people, if they don't for some reason know where to find and follow you, what's the best way to find and follow you?
If you go to nerk.tv, that'll get you to my YouTube page.
Okay.
Search Nerk FPV anywhere else. I'll be on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok.
Adrian was asking in terms of what you take on set. He's asking, do you strictly do GoPro? Which I think the answer is no. What else do you fly with for cameras?
Yeah, I strictly do whatever the production asks me for. So I do get to do a lot of GoPro stuff, which is always a relief, because I think I can usually do cooler stuff with GoPro stuff, if that makes sense. Right, like once you put a Komodo on there, or a BGH1, or a FreeFly Wave, or whatever it is, like it starts to get really heavy and really cumbersome and much more dangerous. So inexpensive. I don't mind the expensive part, right? Because it's like, if we're gonna get something cool, we're gonna get something cool. But I never want to have it be in a situation where I could hurt somebody. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I say my career is mostly spent talking people out of using a nicer camera and into using a GoPro. So I would say like 80% of the time I fly GoPro for whatever it is. Even on bigger things, like when we did the commercial for Ford, they still had me fly GoPro, even though we had a red Komodo strapped to a Money Shot Mini from Catalyst ready to go. Oh, wow. There's like, no, we don't have the GoPro. And so it goes back and forth on what people want. So I fly whatever they want. Sometimes people are okay with a BGH1 instead of a Komodo, which I like this camera because it's really light. Sometimes they want super high slow motion. So this is the Free Fly Wave that shoots like 500 FPS at 4K.
Nice.
And so whatever people ask for, that's what I'm flying.
Very cool. Yeah, the last few pilots I've talked to related to that, they've said that most of the requests they get seem to be for like a Komodo or something like that. But it sounds like you're saying you're kind of convincing them otherwise in some cases, which is interesting that you can still get the shot that they're wanting. Do you think it's maybe just that they're trained to say they need, and then you're kind of teaching them that maybe they don't need that camera for the shot they're asking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tell them I can get you the shot that you want, or I can do it with the camera that you want, but it's not going to be quite as cool, right? So it's like, if you want me to fly through the window of that car and then down the hallway and land in someone's lap, I can do that with the GoPro. But if you want me to do that with a cine lifter, it's not going to happen. Like I can't do that safely or realistically. I keep bumping this lamp. I'm sorry. And so it's just like, so I spend a lot of time showing good GoPro footage, because if you do it right, like, you can get some really good stuff out of it. And it's still Netflix approved. It's still all this stuff. And people are usually pretty okay with that. So, yeah.
Nice.
I want to go back. I saw Bruce says, "This is why I still use a Mobius." I'm actually it would make life so much easier sometimes.
You don't have to worry about hurting anybody with a Mobius.
Exactly. Or hurting the Mobius.
I remember those days. Yep. I remember those days, Bruce. Who was it? RC Ritter was asking your thoughts on the Action 2. Have you seen that camera from DJI that got released recently?
I've seen it. It looks good. They didn't reach out to me. They didn't seem interested in having me. I was just like, because I even reached out. I was like, hey, to my contacts at DJI, I was like, hey, should I be checking out the Action 2? And they're like, it's not really for FPV. We don't think anybody in FPV will be interested in it. I'm like, okay. And then they put their ad out, and it's like 75% FPV drone shots. And every single YouTuber that's looking at it is strapping it to an FPV drone. I'm just like, whatever. So,
yeah.
I don't know what happened there. And I'm not trying to badmouth them at all. I would be super excited to take a look at it. And no matter what you put out, I will find a way to stick it on an FPV drone. Hint, DJI 4D coming in sometime soon on a drone.
Oh, that's the new they're like cinema gimbal camera, right?
Yeah, I'll find a way.
All right, that thing looks like a beast. Yeah, I mean it's it's like the whole camera guts, and they put the lens out on a gimbal essentially.
Yeah. And I think the big problem right now is it's like 10 pounds.
Right.
And not many people have drones that can carry 10 pounds. I got a couple ones that are available.
I hear you fly some big ones. Even maybe today you're flying a big one.
Big boys, yeah. We were flying basically an abducted X class that carries a gimbal and a camera, and it was insane.
I've seen them post about it and talk about it. What's the use case for something like that? Because it's big, which I'm assuming you want to lift a lot of weight, and that's the reason why it's big. And then it's kind of prop guarded for safety, or what's the reason for that?
Yeah, so the best example that I could give is there's a famous scene from Sherlock Holmes movies where the whole cast is like sprinting through the woods, getting shot at from like World War II soldiers, and they're like just like sprinting through the woods. The camera is moving laterally with them, and like parallaxing all the trees, and it's all slow motion. It's all super VFX heavy, but like apparently they had to set up like a mile worth of like dolly tracks and like a big camera set up on this thing, and they had wire cameras where like cameras are hanging in trees and all this stuff, and like so like there's literally like $1 million just invested in this one shot, pyrotechnics aside, just to get this set up. Or we have a high performance drone with a decent payload capacity that can literally just do that flight with no setup at all. We can get there 20 minutes ahead of time. What you don't want to, like, we'll be more prepared, but like you can literally just fly it and do it all safely, quickly, and consistently. That I think a drone like this would replace some of those kind of more expensive, get more of an expensive look out of less gear, even after hiring 2 pilots and all of the gear and all that stuff. This is my goal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I think the value of that is. It's basically like take an Inspire, make it fly precise, better, and like an FPV drone, and then combine dual operator setup with FPV and gimbal.
Awesome. Yeah, I share your vision there. I think that would. It sounds like a much more efficient choice compared to all that setup and cost and
exactly.
money. And if you can get the same result, or maybe even better in some ways, maybe it gives you more freedom to change the shot where you wouldn't on a fixed rail or a line or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Flexibility for sure. Like, because you wouldn't. It's like, oh well, we already laid all this alley track. Now you want us to change it? Well, too bad. Or oh, you want me to fly left of that tree instead of that tree? Sure. All day. You want to call that? You want to call that change in the middle of the shot? Yep. Sure. Go ahead. We'll just make a left. It's fine. It's no different.
Nice.
So I think it's kind of weird, and it's going to take some time to kind of get that to communicate the language of what that could be in filmmaking. I think once people kind of start to see what it can do and what that sort of setup can do, it's gonna be really valuable.
Have you had the other end of the spectrum where they assume it can do something that is like out of the question, where they're asking for something that you're like, that's not possible? Like, what do you think?
Every shoot. And that comes up often, especially the question usually happens with like range. They're like, oh, you can fly like through this building, through the next building, and into the other one. And you're like, well, no, like we got to really figure out how we're going to be able to, get signal from this building into this building into this building, or we're going to have to figure out a way to make it work in different pieces or something like that. So, yeah, a lot of time the discussion is around like, oh, you can't actually fly, just go fly a mile around this building and no consequence. Like,
right. So that disconnects with maybe they don't quite understand the technology limits of what it can do right now in terms of
they don't realize that when we did that one take that I'm literally like hiding in a closet, like barely fitting, trying to fly the drone from there because that's the only spot that we can get transmission from. Yeah, exactly.
Have you had any situations? I've seen a few other pilots do it where they're getting like pushed around or they're in a golf cart just to like get into a better position when they fly to a new location, but they all want, they want it in one take, one shot. Have you had anything like that where you've had to do that?
We've entertained the idea. Actually, just this last weekend, we were talking about doing. We were talking about having me ride an elevator, actually, so that we could go, because I need to go from one floor to the other. But the solution actually ended up being that we would go outside the building, and then there was a lot of glass, so I could beam through the glass into both stories instead of actually like moving me around. And
did you see Neil Freibot did a video maybe a month or two ago? He had him in a chair.
I thought that was amazing. It was genius.
It was amazing, and they got the shot, but that was incredible.
We entertained that idea. We talked about it, like, because we were working with a hospital. So like we had like rolling beds and stretchers and stuff. So like I was going to get in a stretcher and like fly from the stretcher, but we didn't end up doing it. We ended up finding a simpler way.
That's funny. Burf FPV says your awesome pilot compilation of Nerk videos was his first contact with FPV. That's cool.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that compilation was not made by me. It was made by another guy, and it went super viral, like more viral than the training video. And then
it's on your channel or somebody else's channel?
Somebody else's channel.
Oh, did you know it was gonna, like, they got your permission, or they just took your videos and made?
Nope, just took my videos and made one, and I found it after it had started going viral, and I was just like, hey, I don't mind that you did this. It's cool. It's like, I appreciate the homage. But hey, could you like link my channel? And so he added a link to the channel, and I actually saw a pretty good bump in subscribers from it. So I was like, whatever, cool. So I hope he made a couple bucks off of it, and I benefited too. So it was good.
Interesting. I guess you've made it when somebody makes highlight videos of
right. That was a long time ago. Like at that point, it was so funny. I'm trying to remember his name, but yeah, as soon as I think about it, I'll let you know.
So what's on the horizon for you, Paul? What's what should we look out for? Anything you're working on that you're excited about, or like what is the next year or two? What's your goals?
Oh, year or two? Oh man.
Yeah, I know maybe that's too far away. What's your next year?
Not drown. No, so in the next month, I'll be working with DRL. I'll be getting on doing some FaceTime for camera for the broadcast. So look out for that once the sim season starts up. So that'll be really fun. Let's see. There's a couple cool things going on. We're filming a whole bunch of cool stuff right now for the Money Shot Mini V2 and stuff with Catalyst Machine Works. I've got the series with Coasting Thunder, that the roller coaster video that we talked about earlier came out as a part of, and there's a whole big series of like, you know, what it's like to be on set and to kind of do this kind of run and gun filmmaking that I'm really excited about. I think Winston's literally in the other room editing that video right now. If he's not, he should be. And then next in the like, so that's kind of the big stuff that's happening through the end of the year, and then all sorts of really good stuff heading into 2022. So yeah, it's really day to day right now, honestly.
Cool. And how's the work coming for you? You feel like you got enough that you're choosing the ones you want? If it sounds like you're pretty busy, so stuff's just coming in the door, or how's it working for you?
I try to do as much as I can, like that I'm available for, but also I have the opportunity to bounce work to a lot of other guys as well. Ross has a drone, Nick Lang, Winston, Jet, Vanover. I've sent them all stuff that I just didn't have time to do because I was already booked for something. So it's great problem to have, and I'm really grateful that there's that much work right now, and I hope to keep doing it more and more throughout time.
Awesome. What you have any advice for someone that's getting into FPV that wants to go down the cinematographer type path in commercial work?
Yeah, I think within the restraints of that question, I would say that the hardest part is like finding your first client. And what I would suggest you do is, you know, find a business or someone that you can work with that you know would be happy to have something on behalf of for free, but try to charge them, right? Just be like, hey, like, take a chance on me. Let's do this for a small amount of money, something. Just make it a transaction so that you kind of have you have to go through the pain of invoicing someone and communicating with them about like what, you know, and making it a professional and a commercial kind of thing, and go through that whole process. And then you're also not undercutting the industry, right? Because like the worst thing that you can do for everybody involved is to be out there just being like, I'll do it for free, I'll do it for free, I'll do it for free. Like, no, we need to work together as a community to put a value on our work, on our good work, right? We're putting in the time to freaking do this. Run Puppy mentions Part 107. Yeah, obvious, definitely in the United States, have your Part 107. But yeah, just be willing to do something for cheap, but really pour yourself into it, and use that as an opportunity to create a reel to then go to the next person and sell them, hey, I can do this for this much, and look what we did for this client. And, you know, mark down those social network metrics, mark down how it did for them, mark down the kinds of business that it garnered for them, and be ready to prove that. You know, it's as much about being entrepreneurial as it is about being good at drones, right? I know a lot of people that are really okay at drones, and they would be the first to tell you that also find a lot of work because they've put in the work of figuring out, how do I sell myself and how do I market myself? And that's a skill set in of itself.
Sure. Yeah. Good advice. Thank you for that. Paul, I'm trying to remember, for your FPV, do you have a racing handle or a different name that you would fly under when you were racing?
Just Nerk.
Nerk.
Well, but when I first got started, it was Bulba Fett.
That's what I thought it was Bulba Fett. Yeah,
that was way back in the day. Once I joined DRL, they said you can't do Bulba Fett anymore because we'll probably get sued by Disney. So they
was that the connection to the name of why you had chosen it, or was there a different reason?
Sorta, like it was there was a game called Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. Jedi Academy that had an online component to it, and if you didn't pick a name, it automatically assigned a name, and the one that I got was Bulba Fett. And I just used it for probably 15 years, just blindly. That was my name, and whatever. When I got into FPV, of course it's Bulba Fett. And then once DRL came around, it was like, okay, let's try to make this a little bit more professional. And so, you know, my name is Nurkkala, right there. So I just took the
There.
first 4 letters, and it's kind of a 4-letter word. So like, it's got that punch, that pithy, like, oh, like, kind of stuff like that. So it was a choice for sure.
Yeah, I guess Nerk, it's like a verb, right? You got nerked.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Nerk to the hobby was a phrase for a while when the train video came out.
Nerk. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So how many times
Good
have people
boy.
got your last name wrong? Give me some pronunciations that you hear.
The worst is not. I was not given to me, but it's given to my parents. They received a letter that said Nurly Holla somehow. But most people say Nurkkala. Most people just give up. You can see them like, cause like they'll like go to read it and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Paul," and I usually just try to jump in, just be like Nurkkala, and they're like, "Oh, wow, I would never have guessed that. I would have said Nurkkala." I'm like, which yeah, it's fun. It's Finnish, so
Does
the
anyone try to do a
Nordic.
double K, like a Nurkkala?
I don't think I've ever heard that. But
I
like
don't
those
know.
double consonants are super tricky, right? Like it's just like, why are there 2 Ks? Like what does that mean? Like no, it's good. It's fun.
Nice. Well, thanks for the insight. Yeah, I was curious about your other. I remember your other name when you were flying back in the day, and I never knew
Oh
exactly
yeah,
why that was chosen.
way back in the day. I've got a DRL shirt from before I became a pilot, but I was a coach, that has Boba Fett written on it, and it's like signed by all of the original guys, like
Mm-hmm.
Jet and A Noob and
Johnny, was he there then?
Johnny is signed at Brain Drain. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool to see that once in a while. It's just like it's kind of like throwback to early drone days. It's pretty cool.
It's funny to even think of that as early drone days. I guess time is moving on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on. Well, I think we'll start wrapping it up. Thanks again for everyone who's joined us here for the live stream tonight. And thank you, Paul, for joining us and giving us kind of a background of how you got started, what you've been doing today, and the future too. It sounds pretty exciting. And I'm glad to hear that it's been working out for you so far. And I wish you the best in the future with all your work related to drones and life. And congratulations too on the family and starting and
Yeah.
having a kid. That's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for
Future
thanks for.
future drone pilot, maybe.
We'll see. Right now he's afraid of them, so that's not a good place to be in right now. So it makes me a little nervous, but yeah, really, really grateful to be a part of it. Thanks to everybody for stopping in to be here in the Legends of FPV stream. Thanks for all the awesome comments and questions, and I'm glad to see you guys all interacting with each other and answering your questions. Like that's what this is all about. So keep it up, everybody.
Definitely appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for being part of the community, and we'll see everybody next time on our next stream. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great night.